the session. Also, please be informed that this webinar is recorded, and we will send you the recording, slides of the slides, and also videos and survey link to all of you and the participants at the end of the session. I would like to have the pleasure of introducing my colleagues, George, who is going to be our guest speaker for today's webinar. He is going to take us through how to start the innovation. We all know that innovation is key to opportunities or even remaining competitive, but still the challenge how we can start. George is the business development leader for Project Management Institute, and he is actually responsible for scaling the impact of PMI in Africa through organizational developments, sector partnerships, and consumer initiatives. Also, George, he is the co-founder of Dua, and it's an award-winning music messaging startup. Also, George, he is a co-founder and entrepreneurial mentor for London Business School's Excel Awards initiatives. We are glad today to have George in today's webinar, and we are looking forward to your speech and conversation. So welcome, George, and I will now hand over to you. Sorry, George, you are in mute. We can't hear you. You are still on mute.
Let me see.
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I was saying, I'll start again. Apologies for starting late. We had some technical issues, or I had some technical issues. So apologies, everyone, for that. I'm quite conscious of the time. We're already 20 minutes into it. So I'm just going to kick off, just get straight into it. I know that there are a few people who are not familiar with PMI or who are new to PMI. So I'm just going to very, very quickly just touch on who PMI is, and then we'll get into the topic of starting innovation. What we're going to look at is really just the starting point. This is a topic that you could study for a year, but you know, it's obviously a hot topic. It's quite an important topic when you talk about innovation. So we're just going to look at the tip of the iceberg. How do you start, or what are ways to start? So as I mentioned, just in terms of PMI, for those who are new, we help organizations across all sectors to improve their performance. So we work with organizations in the agricultural space, education, technology, and we're all about helping to make ideas a reality by helping to run projects more efficiently, whether the traditional waterfall type of project management or agile type of project management, effectively improving organizational performance. We are located all over the world. We're a global organization, and we're 51 years old. I'm not going to go into the detail there just because of time, but as we are the Africa team, I would like to point out that actually we have about 20 chapters in Africa at the moment. Of those who don't know what a chapter is an independent legal entity who are a team of people, which consists of a team of people who are really passionate about the project management profession and work in their local communities to make an impact in their local communities. We also work with a network of training providers, and we run several education initiatives through our PMI Education Foundation. So that's just a very, very high level of our presence. In terms of how we make our presence felt, or how we serve our communities, we have leadership networks, certifications, and various standards and digital products. But I'm not going to go into the detail now. We can talk about that later on. I was going to talk about an initiative that we're running, which is one of the offerings that we have. Is called the CAPM. So anybody who's interested in talking about that, again, please do get in touch. That's directed at whether you're an entry-level professional or you're even an experienced professional, but who's interested in the principles of project management. Do get in touch. So that's just a very, very, very quick outline of who we are and what we're doing. But now back to the topic of innovation and starting innovation. What is innovation? So, when you speak to people, people say, oh, innovation is about something new. It has to do with technology, or maybe not necessarily technology, because you have really, non-tech organizations innovating as well. Some people say it's about doing an old thing in a new way. And according to Google, which is on the screen, which I put on the screen a snapshot from Google. According to Google, innovation is a new message, it's a new idea, or it's a new product, and innovation is crucial to the continuing success of any organization. So clearly, it's important. I hear somebody saying, "What's the big deal with innovation?" Because it is a buzzword, and the reason why innovation is a big deal is because not just because BCG said it, the Boston Consulting Group, and what they said is nearly 75% of companies say that innovation is one of their top 3 management priorities, and actually 35% rank it above all others. Also, in 2005, BCG report said that the total shareholder return, the total shareholder return 2 percentage points higher than the global market. So basically, those companies who innovate perform better for their shareholders. And so the value of innovation is about helping your organization. It means your organization performs better. It means that you can do more efficiently, or quicker, or faster, or better. So that's just to set the context. But there's one missing piece. Who are the players in innovation? We talk about people, and people meaning business owners, employees, customers. But the other key player is technology. Technology can be both a tool or a strength, and a threat. As in, technology can be both a strength and a weakness. Because when you look at this chart, technology is accelerating faster than organizations and people, and it's having a huge impact on the role of people in organizations. Technology is far outpacing them and forcing a response, I would say, because as the saying goes, innovate or die, and that is very, very salient in the world that we live in today. Innovation is crucial to our performance, if not, to our survival. So how do we get started? And I guess that's what this talk is about. How do we get started on innovation? So there are 3 ways that we can get started, and I have to add that this is not exhaustive. These are some of my thoughts, some of some research. I've got the references as well, which I can include afterwards. But three that I want to touch on, and I'll focus mostly on the second one, which is thinking tools. But the 3 are creative observation, thinking tools, and adversity. So let's look at creative observation first. Creative observation is what most people associate with individuals being innovative. There's a spectrum of creativity or creative observation from gut feel creative, to data-driven observation creative. So there's a spectrum, and then obviously, there are varying degrees in between. At the gut feel end of the spectrum, you have individuals who can just wake up and have a sense of how to be innovative, just naturally idea-driven, naturally creative, naturally have a sense of how to be better, faster, cheaper. If you're this type of individual in an organization, you should probably be listing your ideas down because they'll be very valuable to your organization, and creating business cases around that, and then essentially presenting them to your team or to the leadership. Or if you're in the leadership, you should be pushing these ideas forward. Idea generation is for these at this end of the spectrum is mostly an individual effort, unless you work specifically in an organization that's really creative. But for the most part, at this end of the spectrum is mostly an individual effort. So the challenge with this kind of gift or ability is that it's not really institutionalized. So it's down to the individual, as I mentioned, and in most cases, it's up to creative leaders to pursue their teams or to persuade their teams and organizations, put forward business cases for some of their innovations to be executed. So examples of organizations and leaders doing this are, for example, CNN. But before I go into that, I just want to check if the chat is open very, very quickly. It would be interesting if anyone could write down in the chat the relationship between these four pictures. What is the relationship between these four pictures? Does anybody know? Please write it in the chat if you're able to. Ahmed, let me know if people cannot write in the chat, but it would be interesting if people could, just in about 10 seconds. If it's not open, I'll continue, but if you could just let me know.
Sure. Actually, the chat is open, George, so hopefully we will hear from our participants. I will read actually what they are going to say if I receive. Actually, they're saying your question was not clear. Could you please just repeat your questions?
Okay. The question is, what's the relationship between the items in the picture? So the relationship between Fidel Castro, wheelbarrow, CNN logo, and Big Pen. What is the relationship? I'm going to give it 10 seconds and I'm going to continue. Okay, so any answers?
No, nothing so far.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to continue. So we're talking about creative observation and as a way of starting innovation. And the relationship between the pictures. So the wheelbarrow is what gave the inspiration for the Big Pen. So the founder, the guy who created the Big Pen is a French guy called Baron Marcel Bic. One day he saw a wheelbarrow going through water, and when it came, went through a puddle, and when it came out the other side of the puddle, it left the trail of water. So the wheel went through the water, and as the wheel continued spinning out of the water, it left the train out of the water. And at that time, people were using fountain pens, and actually I think the ballpoint pen may have already been invented, but not in the way that we know it now. And so this French guy, just through his observation, he said, hey, why don't I, surely that could be the same kind of mechanism that we could use to create a pen. Because the problem with the pens at the time, as I mentioned, was that they're ink pens and they kept on leaking into people's pockets. So just through his own creative observation, he took that and created the Big Pen, and now the Big Pen is about, I think it's 50 or 100 years old. The other relationship in this picture, again, it's CNN and Fidel Castro. So the founder of CNN, a guy called Ted Turner. Ted Turner was originally an athlete, and then he moved into business, and he just had a passion for pushing boundaries and doing things differently. And for some reason, he had a passion he had a dream to have 24-hour news. In those days, news was only scheduled at a specific time, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, lunchtime news, and then evening news. But he thought, look, why don't we have 24-hour news? Anyway, it's a very long story, but the short version is he looked into how he could get, first of all, TV content. And the way he did that was to just look around the world to see what's happening in different parts of the world. And his observation was different time zones. There are reporters all around the world in different time zones who want to have their content up. So he literally filled out the U.S. slots based on the time, the equivalent time zones in different countries, and he started CNN that way. But what made CNN catapult? Actually, there are three events that made CNN catapult, and one of the first events was once he had started CNN, and these reporters started doing this 24-hour news or 24-hour-ish news. There were still some gaps. Apparently, the signal was picked up in Cuba by Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro actually tracked down Ted Turner and said, "Hey, Mr. Turner, I don't believe it. I'm getting American news in Cuba. Come and see it for yourself." So he actually flew Ted Turner to Cuba to take a look at what was happening. And again, that was a catapult moment for CNN. What Ted Turner realized was that his innovation of 24-hour news was having an impact on more of an impact on the world around him than he thought. And just by observing the reaction of Castro and some of the people around globally, he sort of like essentially pushed, and we are where we are today because of also other significant events that happened. So this point is about creative observation. So just moving forward from that, the next tool that I want to talk about in terms of how do you get started in innovation is thinking tools. So thinking tools are actually tools that can be institutionalized. They don't really depend on your own gut feel or creative genius. These are tools that can be applied in different environments to start an innovation. And these are tools that are within two categories. The first category is problems in search of solutions, and the second category is solutions in search of problems. So if we look at the first one, solutions in search of problems, the tool there is the magic wand. What does this mean? So the magic wand is all about focusing on the ultimate innovation without limiting your thinking. So just to recap, we know that innovation is important, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we innovate? The tool that we're using to try to innovate is the magic wand, and the magic wand is a way to get your thinking going. It's a way to open up your mind so that you're not limited by your normal thinking, right? So it's a tool that encourages, as I said, thinking without limitation. You focus on the ultimate innovation without limiting your thinking. And how do you use it? The whole idea is that it's either yourself or your team. You identify the problem to be addressed, and what you do is you ask yourself, if you had a magic wand, how would you address that problem? So it's just about removing every limitation you have to your thinking, because at the end of the day, the success of any organization is because of the success of the individuals in those organizations, as in how the individuals in that organization think. So in this case, it's how innovative can you be, and how innovative you can be is a function of how limited or unlimited your imagination or your thinking is. So again, you have a magic wand, and ask yourself, what would I do if I had a magic wand? Or if money was not an issue, what would I do to address this problem? And once you sort of like define what you would do if you had a magic wand, then you look at whether it's actually realistic or not. But the thing is not to give up even if it looks unrealistic. The thing is to just bring it down a slight notch at a time, as opposed to just bringing it down drastically. So I'll give you an example. So example is Five Guys. I don't know how many people like burgers or Five Guys, but Five Guys is one of the most innovative burger joints because of the taste. So the way Five Guys started was that the founder was this American guy based in I think it was based in DC, and he was divorced, and he was thinking of two things. One, well, first he was thinking of a way he could get his kids back. He had 4 kids, so he was thinking of a way that he could get his kids back. And then once he got his kids back, he needed a way to keep his kids. So he said, okay, what can we do? Plus he also needed cash. So basically, him and his four sons decided to make burgers. That's why it's called Five Guys. It's the father who's the founder and his 4 sons. And what he told his son was that, look, we just need to make the best burgers possible, because he looked around and he saw that people were selling. There were shops that were selling only fries in even undesirable neighborhoods, and they had queues around the block. So he said it's possible to sell one thing very well and make a lot of money from it. So we just want to sell the best burgers. So what he did was he told his kids, tell me what I should put in the burger, and he made a point of not telling telling the kids the cost of the ingredients. He said that was actually a key thing, because once the kids knew the cost of the ingredients, it would affect their thinking, and they wouldn't dream as kids dream. So essentially, the kids came up with very interesting ingredients, very sort of like different kind of flavors, and because of that, there was an innovation in the hamburger industry, essentially, and that's part of the reason that Five Guys is where it is today. Obviously, there's a lot more to that, but the early innovation with Five Guys was based on Magic Wand. The second tool is internalization. So, as I said, we're still looking at problems in search of solutions. This is the natural thing that we do. We have a problem and we're looking for a solution for it. We've just looked at Magic Wand. Now we're looking at internalization. Internalization is all about walking in the shoes of your customer. We want to feel the pain of the user or the customer and want to be able to turn that around. How do we do that? First, we identify the process or the problem to be addressed. We then put together a team. Again, this can be an individual or so like a group of people, and then we map out the individual user or customer journey, because this is all about walking in the shoes. And to walk in the shoes, you need to know what exactly is the user or the customer experiencing, and what path are they taking. And for each step of their journey, you ask yourself, why are they having to take that step? And there's a task called the 5 whys. For each step, you ask yourself, a number of times, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And the idea is that you're drilling down to the ultimate response to make sure that the activity or the action or the step that's being taken at that point in time is required. If it's not, obviously the ideal situation is that you identify what's not required, and then you're able to redesign the process without the pain. Because again, from a customer point of view, customers gravitate to organizations or are loyal to organizations where they have a good customer experience. That means minimal pain or reduced pain. And so an example of that is Gatwick Airport. I'm not sure how many of you have flown through Gatwick Airport, but the waiting time a few years ago was actually significant, quite significant. Everything from the check-in process to when you're receiving your baggage. And a few years ago, they were owned by a private equity company called Global Infrastructure Partners. And what Global Infrastructure Partners did is exactly this. They analyzed the passenger journey right from the door of the airport to when they were on the plane, and also the reverse, from when they landed to when they left the airport. So this was a very detailed exercise in sort of like process improvement and change management, using things like Six Sigma processes, just walking in the shoes of the customer, feeling the pain, and trying to take that pain away. So the tricky thing with this is that sometimes you're going to have to there's going to have to be a balancing act. Sometimes taking the pain away doesn't necessarily mean that you're you're making things faster or cheaper. Taking the pain away might mean that you're actually paying for it, so your cost might be a little bit higher. So it's about balancing out that balancing out the customer experience with what you can afford. But then that should fit into your overall strategy. So that's the internalization tool. So it's natural to solve problems by searching for solutions, and that's what we've just done with those two tools: the magic wand, and internalization. But you can also solve problems by looking for problems. So using problems to solve problems, and this is reverse exploration, right? And there are two ways of doing this. So those two ways are translation and flipping. So I'll just go into the detail right now. So the translation tool is about where else would something work, right? So your objective is to figure out, where else an existing solution would work. The whole point is to encourage, again, outside of the box thinking from what you're currently used to. So how do you use it? You let's say the first step is, yourself or your team, you take, let's call it an inspirational walk or an exploration. You explore a range of existing solutions across various sectors. And the reason why I say various sectors is because, again, you don't want to limit your thinking. So, you could be working in agriculture, and you could be looking at solutions that exist in consumer goods or technology or some other thinking or some other industry. So the idea is to just explore and identify solutions that work well in different sectors. It's likely that they work so well that actually we take them for granted. So things like a chair. A chair is a great solution. We take it for granted. We sit down even without thinking that we're sitting down on a chair. And so for each solution that you identify, you play around with it. For example, a toothbrush. Play around with a toothbrush. What does it feel like? What are you doing with it? Can that be used for something else? Yeah, maybe polishing your shoes. That's quite a basic innovation. But what else can you do with a toothbrush? You think you might need to force yourself to do what's unnatural, and force yourself to do something that's outside the box. To try to figure out what else you could use it for, and think about whether your repurpose or your new idea is realistic. So again, down to examples. On the left, we've got a picture of a lollipop. Lollipops were created many years ago, but there was this company that was owned by two guys. I forget their names. And what these two guys did was they said, you know what? Why don't we create a lollipop spinning machine, so that it's easier to lick your lollipop. Obviously, a lollipop is not difficult to lick, but these guys created a lollipop licking machine, and they sold a few units, but they didn't change the world. They did an exploration exercise, whether intentionally or unintentionally. They were walking in a supermarket and saw and then looked at toothbrushes, and they realized that actually the solution that they already have, which was the lollipop spinning machine, could actually be repurposed to be used as a toothbrush. So they repurposed their lollipop spinning machine, and lo and behold, they took the electric toothbrush to a whole other level. So that's an example of an existing solution that has been used to solve the problem. Another example is Honda, but I'm not going to go into that for time. But the short version with Honda is that Honda was a guy, obviously Japanese, who loved racing bikes. And after the First World War, when there were a lot of machines and mechanical parts around, he essentially took machines that were being used in the war and put them on his bike, and started using that to race. So he repurposed a normal bike into a racing bike with a machine from the war, and and Honda was born essentially. So that's the short version of it. So that is translation, the tool of translation when it comes to solutions in terms of problems. The second solution in search of problem, or the second tool, is what we call flipping. So flipping is about symmetry. So it's about the reverse solution in the same context. So for example, this is a Zoom call, and this is a WebEx call, and the I guess the etiquette on the WebEx call or even a Zoom call is that if you wanna ask a question, then you can just raise your hand if the hand icon is in WebEx. But we could reverse that. What if the etiquette was that if you don't want to ask the question, then raise your hand, so that anybody who did not raise their hand was the person who wanted to ask the question, and that changes dynamics. It changes the way that we interact. It changes the way that audience behaves. So if you think about that in a classroom where you're telling school kids, for example, if you don't want to answer the question, put your hand up. It really just changes the dynamic of the classroom. But when it comes to business, think about it from a point of view of pricing strategy. So obviously, pricing, when we price our goods, we advertise the price. But what would happen if we didn't advertise the prices? What would happen if we asked customers to pay whatever amount, any amount that they thought our product was worth or our service was worth? What would happen? Would they pay more or less? Would it average out to more or less? That's probably a sensitive example, but I'm just trying to get across that we can flip the rules that we're used to. We can flip them to change the dynamics of the situation. And when we do that, we monitor the dynamics of the situation to see what's the impact of that innovation. I'm just going to speed through the rest because of time. So we've just done flipping, and so the third area was adversity, and I'm just going to talk through this very quickly. So when human beings have their backs against the wall, we tend to be a little bit more creative. I don't know if it's the adrenaline or the pressure or the stress or a combination of all of the above. We can come up with different solutions when we're under different kinds of pressure. So using this as an innovation tool, I mean, you could either you could be in one or two scenarios. You could be actually in real life in an adversity situation, in which case naturally you're going to be thinking in a particular way, or you could simulate that experience. So simulate being in an adversity situation, simulate being under pressure, or simulate being stressed, and see how you respond to the market, or what ideas you come up with. A few ideas that come out of adversity, or a few ways of thinking that come out of adversity are, for example, the genius of imitation, as in imitating your competitors. If you're in a situation where your competitors are constantly ahead of you, and actually this can also apply even if you're ahead of your competitors. So you're looking at the market and essentially imitating what works in the market. Another situation is from the point of view of adversity. Before you get to the point of adversity, this is actually preempting it. Make sure that, for instance, you're able to be agile, because agility in adversity could actually be your saving grace. And we've all heard of the companies like Kodak and some of these massive companies that look like they would never disappear, or that they'll be around forever. But because they were not able to be agile, and they were not able to adapt given the time, given the situation that they were in, they effectively eventually disappeared. I was going to talk about power skills and innovation. So innovation is one of the key power skills. We saw earlier on that actually innovation is critical. It's very important to the performance and survival of organizations. And so, at PMI, we have what we call the talent triangle, which is what I showed before. The talent triangle, just looks at the different areas of the different types of skills that people in organizations have. You have power skills, you have business acumen, and you have ways of working. And your power skills are the soft skills that technology actually cannot replicate. And it's the power skills that it's within power skills where innovation lies. So having that ability to innovate is a strong ability. So that was a bit rushed, but again, conscious of time, I'm going to now round up here, and I want to bring in a surprise guest to talk about innovation at PMI. The surprise guest, are you ready?
If you're referring to me, I'm here. This is Dave.
Absolutely. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm just great. Your presentation was wonderful, and the wheels are turning in my head about how I might adapt and change in response. Thank you.
Great. So everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Dave Stadler. Dave Stadler is the lead for innovation at PMI, and he's just going to talk through some of what we're doing at PMI and essentially, obviously, how we do innovation at PMI. So, Dave, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in, and over to you.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Let me know when I should move to the next slide. Okay, sure. Thank you.
So hi everyone, it's great to be with you. Please, we can jump right in. I know that time is short. I think that much of what George shared is really at the heart of what we try to do at PMI, and we do it for the change makers of the world and lots of the people on this call. So thank you for joining. We can jump right into the slides. So please, yeah. So my team is responsible for building new products, building a culture of innovation around our organization, and also the partnerships that PMI embarks upon. And so when we talk about the power skill of innovation, this is something that we try and are building the capability to live the way that we discuss it. And so it's always a work in progress, and we're always looking to grow. I'll share a little bit about some of the foundational blocks of our approach and what it's translated into in 2020. We can keep going. So first, the building blocks. So typically, I know George spoke about this a little bit, but typically in past experience, I've had the good fortune of working both in corporate strategy and in product development and innovation at publicly traded companies, at a venture accelerator, and also in the startup world. And I find that often there's excitement and energy around figuring out that there's an opportunity and going and building a product and trying to head to market. And this happens a lot, I would say, and it leaves a fair amount up to chance. It's a fairly simple process. And so when it came to, I joined PMI in late 2018, but we really took the approach that we have a group of stakeholders who are so capable and who really are so connected to the world around them that we wanted to develop products that were not accidental, that really had an intentional purpose that was very helpful. And so we thought about this and we said, well, there are some pitfalls here. We can jump forward. The simplest thing, when we assess an opportunity and jump right into building, I'll give you this is a personal example. In the world of healthcare, we often think about things as transactional. So we think about them as someone needs to get care, and then they go and get the care, and that's just sort of a fact of life. And if we don't think about the design of these things, you may notice this is actually a bill that I received from a healthcare encounter. And you take a look and try to find the problem here. There's a real problem when it comes to this as a way of serving customers. So there it is. If you wanted to actually pay this bill online, you would have to type in that link, that URL, which is not exactly customer-centric. It's not exactly a nicely designed way of thinking about a customer experience. It's purely transactional. And so this represents some short-sightedness in the world of innovation. And so we wanted to power past this. We can keep going. And so the next step in terms of an expanded way of thinking is really thinking about design more. And design is something that's near and dear to my heart. And I have a small team at PMI that really focuses on trying to design products that are useful and helpful and that have low friction with our end users. But just thinking in these terms also comes with some challenges. An example of that, we can keep going, similarly, is something called the Norman door. We've all encountered these types of doors in office parks and other places. If you look at these, at first glance, you think to yourself, there isn't a problem here. It's designed, they're relatively elegant. And these are pictures that I took along my journey. But Don Norman, who's considered one of the fathers of modern design, this faulty design is named after him. It represents an innovation or a design element where we're not telling the end user, or we're not giving them a clean and simple way to understand how to engage with the thing we're designing. And so if you look at these doors, it's not possible, door on the left, to figure out, do I push or pull? How should I approach a door like this? And when we run into a door by accident that is intended to be pulled and we try to push it, we have a tendency as individuals to blame ourselves. But really, Don Norman talks about this, that's a product of design. And so we don't have to blame ourselves for these things, and they should be designed more elegantly. In similar fashion, the door in the center, if we actually have to indicate that someone needs to push a door, in a certain sense, we've already lost the war. We have to be a little bit more thoughtful in how we design things for end consumption. And you can click one more time, George, lest we end up at a place where we have to explain things in this way, And so part of design is not needing to label things and explain them deeply for individual consumption, that they should be fairly obvious. So for PMI, there's a journey and an evolution that the organization has gone through to help people who are in very, very diverse roles, who are in different professions, in the sense that they may work in HR or finance or IT, but share the common goal of managing project work or making global change. As we've evolved as an organization, we've begun to think much more deeply about beginning with a problem. So oftentimes in this simple diagram, how many times in your own organizations or in your own interactions with innovation, they begin with, you know what I can do, or you know what we can do, or we have a programmer who can build this. And then we work our way in this diagram from right to left. We build something, and then we figure out what problem it solves. We try to match it to an opportunity, and maybe there's a problem that we solve in the process. This is good, but in the corporate environment, sometimes this can lead to products that George mentioned. Sometimes we build solutions in search of problems. It can lead to solutions that never find problems. And so products that don't land with our end users if we travel from right to left. At the best, sometimes we have design intentions and then we go towards building, but then we don't think about if there are enough customers, if we've assessed an opportunity for a large enough group of end users, and if we've solved their problem effectively. So at PMI, we've taken the approach of beginning with a real customer problem, deeply understanding and appreciating it with some of the methods that George shared earlier, and then moving forward from there. This is translated into a couple of really interesting products in 2020. I share these with you so that you can see sort of how we've approached these issues. You can go to the first one. So next week, we begin the launch of Wicked Problem Solving. So some of the things around thinking tools and creative observation, and also working through adversity that George mentioned, are just tremendous tools that are disciplines that can be learned. Even if we have a few tools in our kit bag, it can be very difficult to make these work with a team in a team environment. And so this is an offering that essentially says, no matter who you are, if you're an HR professional, a finance professional, an IT professional, if you're in construction, and what you do is project management, we can help you think about how you do it. How can you be more innovative in the work that you do? And we began with a problem. How do we lead in an era? How do we empower our members, our leaders, our chapters to innovate, and in a time of transformation where digital transformation is common and extremely important and pivotal in each of our jobs and in each of our organizations, and also in the COVID era. And so we heard a lot of feedback around help us drive change, not only in the decisions we make, but culturally. And so Wicked Problem Solving is a product that we developed that actually provides the education and frameworks that we preach, that we're learning about and studying. There's much more there, but I'm conscious of time. Secondly, an offering that's also now online and available is Kickoff. And Kickoff was actually born from a problem that Amazon had. We have a global executive council with leaders at some of the world's best and brightest project management organizations. One of our members, Rick from Amazon, had a huge problem of bringing on thousands and thousands of people to manage project work for the first time, and just was unable to train them all up, and had been using some very basic documents that he had put together and to teach them into their roles. And so he basically said, can you help us? We have this huge problem. Turn it into a very easy and workable way in 45 minutes for a new project manager to speak the language, for someone new to trying to make change, to have the tools and templates that they need. And so from that, lots and lots of research and work with companies and programming later, we have this application that's 45 minutes that takes you from a novice to having the toolkit to approach the big challenges of managing project work with a team. So those two things, I think, really highlight our beginning with clear problems, thinking through what we hope are always evolving and always improving, but elegant solutions. And we're very excited to try them. I think that as an organization, it's important to highlight that we're always looking for feedback. I notice Nelson shared that if you have any questions in the chat box, we're always happy to answer them and participate in direct conversation. I'm happy to stay on and participate in the chat as well. So I just wanted to thank you all for being here. It's really an exciting journey, and it's always a true pleasure to be with George and his team, and also to be in direct contact with you as we learn and iterate further.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks a lot. That was pretty good. That was pretty incredible. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we've come to the end of our presentation, and we'd like to take questions. So if there are any questions, Dave and I can address those. So just as a reminder, we've talked about innovation. How do we start innovation? It's quite obviously a huge topic, but at least to start, we can think about, a few frameworks that we can use, or tricks to get our mind thinking in the right way. We talked about creative observation. Some people are just naturally able to sit back and observe, or either have gut feel or observe data and just address and come up with an innovation quite quickly. We talked about that. Secondly, we talked about using tools like problems in search of solutions, and solutions in search of problems. And within those, we talked about flipping and several other points. And then finally, we just talked about the dynamics of adversity. When your back is against the wall, you're somehow able, in a lot of cases anyway, to come up with responses that you wouldn't normally come up with under under calm circumstances. So that was just an overview, hopefully just to give you some ideas to start working with and to dig deeper. So we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks, George and Dave, for the actually exciting news and information about the upcoming new products and also about the innovation tactics and tools. So so far, I'm just looking at the questions. I see actually there's a kind of a conversation or maybe questions from Francois. He said many things are going on. I think he's referring here to PMI products and the upcoming new products as well. Then he said it's agile or perfect kickoff. I think, Francois, the question is not clear. Then he said, is it more for agile or waterfall? So I think he's referring to the kickoff, let's say, course. Is it for agile or for waterfall? So Dave, do you think you can answer this question?
Sure. Briefly, the reason to share these products with you is just as examples practically of how we've put our innovation process that I described, that 4-box method, into practice in developing these products, that they're really born from customer need all the way through what we hope are improving solutions, right? Constantly improving solutions to these problems. I'll say in answer to Francois' questions, Kickoff is an application that's available online at perfectkickoff.com, which I believe what he's referring to. It's a free application that anyone who registers for a PMI user account can try or use. The whole thing is available for free. It actually teaches, it asks a few questions at the beginning of the application around the work that a new to project management person is doing. So Francois is referring to agile or waterfall methodologies for managing projects. So more iterative or more sequenced ways of managing project work. This application actually teaches the foundations of both methodologies. The new user answers a series of 4 questions before they begin, and the tool will place them in the correct learning path. It also has the ability to translate from English into French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Chinese.
It's great, thank you, Dave. I think that answer Francois' question. So please, we do have since we started late, so we can extend for 10 more minutes. So please take the opportunities. If you have any questions, we have 2 speakers and 2 experts now with us. So let's see if they have any question about the PMI upcoming new products, or if you have any questions about George presentations. Meanwhile, I don't think any questions. I just want to check with Nelson. Do you see any questions from the participants?
Yeah, I see a question from Francois. I think he wrote it after the one you read. Is asking, the link between innovation and perfect kickoff is not clear to me. When did this page started? That's what he's asking. I don't know if Dave, you can take on that.
My team is responsible for new product development at PMI. So there's a very small group of people that did everything from understanding the problem at organizations to creating very rapid prototypes of this application. The first in about 3 days. The second, it was a paper prototype. We invited people to a cafe and we asked them to show us where on the page they would interact. The second prototype was about 2 weeks and it was software based. The third was about 2 months. And we've arrived at a more complete product that was born from this process within PMI's innovation team. The content of the product is not to teach innovation per se. It is to actually teach the very fundamentals of project management for someone who is very new to our world. We find that our members and our volunteers are connected communities certainly can use this as a refresher on key terms and maybe grab a few templates right out of the application, but also that they can share it within their organization so that others begin to speak the same language and think within these frameworks of solving difficult problems or advancing projects through project management. So it's a tool that some on this call might use, some on this call might share with others, or within their communities or academic institutions as well. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Dave.
If there are no other questions, can I ask one in the interim? If anybody has in the chat, if there are innovative tools that you're seeing being used to help accelerate project management, we'd love to learn about what is most relevant to you. Please feel free to drop those in the chat.
Meanwhile, I have a question maybe to George, like if for example, like as an individual or even in my organization at my role, what do you think you spoke about agility, you spoke about adaptability as well, but what capabilities, let's say, if I am a leader or if I'm leading a project that I need to have in order to be more innovative?
So I guess, that's one of the things that I brought up was power skills, because in innovation is part, I guess you look at it as part soft skill, part hard skill or technical skill. So this ties back to the first point that I was making about some people are just naturally gifted at thinking out the box and coming up with new innovations. They have gut feel, so you could describe that as, really strong innovation skill or really strong power skill on that side. So I guess what I'm saying is, number one is, have the power skill is helpful. And then number two is from a tech point of view, because tech plays a role on two sides. As I mentioned earlier, it could either be a tool or a threat. So having an awareness on both perspectives is actually pretty important. If you remember the chart I showed where it showed that the rate of increase of technology is increasing, so it's absolutely critical that a leader or a project manager is aware of what's happening from a technology point of view, in addition to having their power skills.
Perfect. Thank you, George. I'm looking at the chat and the Q&A section, so to see if there are any contribution, participation, or questions from the participants. All right, so what I can say, if there is any further questions or comments, or let's say feedback on the kickoff, let's say new products. Actually, I have done it the day before yesterday. It was very interesting and nice. Exercise for me. So I downloaded all of the templates. I have around 10 templates, and I start using it in my day-to-day work. So thanks, PMI. So basically, if you please feel free. I think we have shared the kickoff link to our chapter leaders, and if in case you don't have it or you need more information about our today's session topic or any other products of PMI, kindly feel free to reach out to us, or simply you can reach out to pmiafrica@pmi.org, and myself, my colleagues, we make sure to reach out to you. And also, if you have any questions to Dave and George, I think you just let us know. Please reach out to us. I think most of you know George. For Dave, is based in GHQ. In PMI headquarters, so please reach out to us, and we'll make sure to reach out to link you with Dave as well. So thank you once again for George and Dave for sharing with us in today's session, and also thank you all for listening, for your time, and also for the questions. And I just wanted to confirm, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we will share with you the recording, the slides, and also the BDU's details that you are this session eligible for one BDU, and also we'll share with you a survey. We really love to hear your feedback to improve our future webinars, and also if you have any suggested topics that you want us to really represent in the future series. So with that note, thank you once again, everyone, and wish you a great afternoon, great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.